If I wanted to look at where my items are and what quantity, notice I have a quantity on hand. If I click on the quantity on hand, it'll show me all of the transactions that occurred to make that quantity exist. However, let's say I wanted to know where my items are throughout the whole database in every site. I'm going to pull back up as the smart list. And I want to show you the differences that I personally like between what happens in BC versus GP. So let's go into it. All right, so we're going to click on more options. There's a couple of things we can look at. One of the things that I personally like is my item availability. Now, what the item availability by is going to show you by your events, your bomb level, your period, location, so on and so forth. So, if I wanted to see where my item is and where my quantities are by location, I want you to notice that what it does is it shows you by warehouse and also any orders that you may have. So this particular item doesn't have anything. Let's go and find an item that has stock. Give me a second. All right. So if you see my unspecified location, if you recall back to my posting setup, I had three areas where I did not have and a location set for my inventory accounts or my inventory locations to be associated with that account. Well, that means unspecified. Everywhere else you see, I notice that I have location codes and it will show their quantities. Now, of course, it'll show you your projected balance, which means any inventory that's coming in, whether it be on a production, assembly, manufacturing order, or purchase order. In addition to that, we also have items by location. Back to our card. Now I want you to look at this. I love this window personally. Let's do this. Let's look at this. Now, this is something else I like about BC. I can adjust the view that I want to see. Let's say I don't want to see all of this stuff at the top. So what it can do is if I click on that icon here, and hover over it, it tells me that I can focus. So I just want to focus on just what I see on this window, just my inventory, my item number, and the locations. If you look at how it shows in a table, I love that. Versus in GP, it shows a list. So I have my item numbers repeating over and over and over again. And if you have tons of sites inside of GP, then this thing it can get a bit frustrating. Now, of course, in GP, you can go through and do your search and set your criteria to look at it by a site. But again, it's one report by that location code. So instead of having to do that and any further or any longer, BC gives you the opportunity to look at it in a table format. And I love that. And again, this is something that you can export to Excel. You can open now. You cannot edit this window in Excel, but you can open it and use the document on your Excel application. All right, now, as far as reporting is concerned, one of the things that I really enjoy about BC, there's a couple of things that I find to be very intuitive, and one of those is the analysis mode. Now, if you're thinking about pivot tables, Excel, just basic Excel reports, printing from a smart list, then what you'll notice is BC is way more intuitive and I love it. Now, for those of us who love GP, I have a love hate relationship with GP. It does what I want it to do sometimes, but not all the time. Well, for instance, one of those things that I'm referring to is pivot tables. So, in order for me to pivot on this, I could export it to Excel, create the pivot table, and bring it back into GP as an Excel refreshable report. The other thing I could do with my reporting in GP is let's go to my items and my navigation pane. In GP, I can't remember what exact year it was that the navigation pane became very, um, useful. But the navigation pane is an interactive way of transacting and updating your items within GP. If you notice, I'm going to click on a couple of items. If you notice here on my action pane, a few things allow you to do mass updates, new transactions, so on and so forth. You can do that right from GP's navigation pane. This is also a report. You can export this to Excel. So you have reports that you can create, and you have your go-tos sent to Excel. Now, where BC does almost the same thing, but a little bit more dynamic, is your analysis mode. Now, of course, let's get out of analysis mode for a moment. Of course, we have the shared, open, and edit in Excel, share the Teams copy link. GP does not give you that option. You just send to Excel, then you can email it or put it in a shared location for your members of your company to look at. However, I, NBC, can create an analysis mode, and you see my pivot mode, and toggle this on, and you can start creating a pivot table. Really simple. If you all are good at pivot tables, the same way that it works in Excel as a pivot table is the same thing that it does in BC as a pivot table. I can add fields, I can group them, I can make them into values. And the other thing that I can do with this is rename it. I can duplicate it, I can add columns to it. I can do so much with reporting NBC with my inventory.